Okay, let's get started. In this first video, we're going to talk about why are we here? What are we talking about this? Why is this the right time to talk about sample size calculations? And what do we even mean by sample size? At this early stage of survey planning, we need to calculate the magnitude of the effort that we're talking about so we can feed those estimates to the logistics team and the budgeting team, and we can decide together how many places would we need to send survey teams to accomplish our goals. When they arrive in those spots, how many households would they need to visit in order to find enough eligible and willing respondents? These items relate to the resources that will be required to accomplish the survey. And then all of those are really in pursuit of gathering enough completed survey responses so that we can calculate our results in a manner that is precise, and that the results will have margins of error which are narrow enough to be useful for decision making for the vaccination program. So that's what we mean by sample size. We're calculating things like this: how many teams, how many days, how many completed responses. We start out by considering what are the important questions. We translate those into goals, and then right away we calculate sample size so that we can estimate a budget and a timeline, and so that we can revise the goals or the sample size if our initial plans turn out not to be affordable or timely. You might think of this as a discussion, like a discussion maybe in a family when it's time to buy a new car. If my wife said, let's buy a new car, then this is the model I would think of right away. I would want to buy this car. But then she would probably remind me that we have two darling children who will need to ride in the car as well. And so we need to be a little more practical than this. We need room for the kids and maybe room for some luggage. So I might suggest that we get something like this, with plenty of room for kids and plenty of room for luggage. And then we might discuss the topic of what we can afford. And then we might be looking at models like this, which would be well within our price range, but maybe not quite as safe or as useful as we feel we need to have for our family. So we might wind up someplace like this. And this is similar to the types of discussions that survey steering committees have at the beginning. As they go through this cycle, they often want everything. They want the world. They want the best of everything. They want it fast. In many cases, we calculate the sample size and the budget and the timeline, and that has a sobering effect on the steering committee. And then they go back up, and there are some levers we can pull, some compromises we can make to come out with something that's still useful, still affordable, but maybe not where we start. So that's why we're having this conversation at this stage of the survey planning. Before we launch the rest of the videos describing all these concepts this week, I want to acknowledge the others who have contributed to them directly and indirectly. So the ideas, this way of thinking about it, this way of marrying sample sizes for estimation and classification is a little bit different than other methods that are used in vaccination coverage. It's new with this manual, and the approach came out of the conversations that we had as we were revising the manual, writing the manual for 2015. So among this group, there's Tony Burchett on the left, that's myself in the middle, Pierre on the right, and Felicity in front. So the ideas came from those discussions. And then my colleague Mary Pryor, pictured here, she's the one who wrote Annex B, designed and created the tables, and laid out the worksheets and the step-by-step flow that you can use to calculate sample size. And then more recently, Dana Thompson, pictured here, she took Mary's paper-based system and she ported it to an Excel tool. So we're going to get some practice this week with doing the calculations by hand using a pencil and paper. And then we're going to see that when we put the same inputs into Dana's handy spreadsheet, that we get the same results out the back end. And so I just want to acknowledge the contributions of all these other folks and thank them. And you'll hear from some of them during the course as well. So that wraps it up for this video.